"So, darling, how was your time with your lover?" That's what I asked her. Madison had just stepped through the door, heels in one hand, the scent of wine and someone else's cologne still clinging to her skin. Her lipstick was smudged, her blouse buttoned wrong. I sat there, in the dark, waiting, like a loaded gun with the safety off. She froze, eyes widening for half a second. Then came the smirk. That same smug look she wore every time she thought she had the upper hand. "Oh, you mean Brandon?" she said, as if casually dropping the name of the man she'd been betraying me with. "It was much better than with you." Boom. Right there. No hesitation. No shame. Just a gut punch wrapped in silk and spite. I didn't speak. Not right away. I let the silence build, let her arrogance echo around the room. My heart was hammering in my chest, but I kept my face calm, unreadable. I had waited weeks for this moment. Nights of pretending I didn't notice the late returns, the sudden showers, the hidden messages that disappeared the moment I walked into the room. But now, there was no more pretending. She'd handed me the truth like a slap in the face, and smiled while doing it. "You know," I said slowly, "you're even worse than I imagined." She rolled her eyes and flopped onto the couch across from me like nothing had happened. "Oh, grow up, Tyler. Don't act like a victim. Maybe if you weren't so boring, so predictable, maybe I wouldn't have looked elsewhere." I could barely believe what I was hearing. The woman I married, my wife of 5 years, was sitting there mocking me like I was the problem, like I deserved this. But I stayed quiet. I had learned to stop reacting. Reacting only gave her power. Instead, I opened my phone and tapped the gallery. Dozens of photos lit up the screen. Her sneaking out of Brandon's car. Her hand on his chest at that downtown bar. A hotel receipt with her name on it, time-stamped and signed. Her mouth dropped when she saw it. "You followed me?" "No," I said coolly. "I hired someone better." She stood up then, face pale, smile gone. "You really think you can control me with this? That I'm just gonna fall to my knees and beg?" I raised an eyebrow. "No, I think you're going to realize you lost everything." She laughed again, louder this time, more desperate. "You're bluffing. You don't have the balls to do anything. You never did. That's why I stopped loving you." There it was. The final nail. Not just betrayal, not just cheating, but complete humiliation. And yet, I didn't yell. I didn't break anything. I didn't plead. Instead, I stood up, walked past her, and dropped a manila envelope onto the table. Inside, divorce papers. Already signed. Property split. Joint accounts emptied. Legal evidence attached. She stared at it like it was a bomb. "I'm done playing the fool," I said. "You wanted to burn this marriage? I'm just here to make sure you go down with the fire." Her voice trembled now. "Tyler, we can fix this. You're just angry. Please, don't throw everything away." I turned to her, finally letting the rage I'd bottled up for months show in my eyes. "No, Madison. You threw it away the moment you unbuttoned your blouse for another man." And just like that, I walked out. But that wasn't the end. That was the beginning. She didn't follow me out the door. That surprised me, honestly. Madison had always been the type to chase attention, money, validation. But when I left that night, slamming the door behind me, she just stood there in silence. Maybe it finally hit her that I wasn't bluffing. Maybe the look in my eyes said enough. Or maybe, just maybe, she realized I wasn't the doormat she'd been wiping her feet on for years. I didn't go far. Just to the car. Sat there with the engine off, staring through the windshield as the lights in the house flicked off one by one. The same house I built with my own hands. The same house she brought another man into. The rage was burning a hole in my chest, but I kept it contained. Controlled. Focused. Madison thought she had all the power because I let her think that. What she didn't know was that I'd been planning my exit for weeks. Quietly. Strategically. Like war. I moved into a small Airbnb across town. Nothing fancy, but peaceful. And most importantly, clean. No scent of her on the pillows. No fake affection lingering in the air. Just me, my thoughts, and a folder full of ammunition. A few days later, her lawyer called mine. She was shocked, panicked, and when she finally messaged me, after days of silence, the tone had shifted. Gone was the mocking tone, the cruel smirks. Now it was desperation. "Can we please talk? You're overreacting." Overreacting? Let's rewind for a second. This woman had been lying to my face for months. Pretending she was going out with friends, while she was actually letting Brandon the bartender pull her panties down in the back seat of his car. I had the GPS data to prove it. The photos. Even a voicemail she forgot to delete, giggling while whispering, "I can't wait till he's gone again." And she wanted to talk? No. What I wanted was payback. So I gave her a taste of it. I scheduled the movers. My name was on every major asset. The house, the car, even the damn dog. Madison always thought she was too clever to sign anything, that she could manipulate me into handling the boring paperwork. Turns out, that laziness was her downfall. By the time she realized it, half the house was already boxed up. I'll never forget her face when she pulled into the driveway to find strangers hauling her favorite mirror off the wall. She stormed in like a hurricane. "What the hell is going on?" she shrieked. I looked her dead in the eyes. "I'm taking back everything you thought was yours." She sputtered, tried to bark orders at the movers. But they didn't listen. Because the contract? It was under my name. "You can't do this, Tyler." "Oh, I already did. And you've got until Friday to get your things out. After that, the locks change." She looked like she'd been slapped. She tried guilt next. Tears welled up in those lying eyes. "I didn't mean for this to happen. I just felt so alone. You were always working." "Spare me." I cut in. "You weren't lonely. You were bored. There's a difference." Then came the insults. "You're pathetic. You think this makes you a man? You think taking my things is justice?" "No," I said calmly, as I picked up a box marked "Wedding Memories" and tossed it into the trash. "This isn't justice. This is the consequence." Madison stormed off, screaming something about ruining her life. But the truth was, she did that all by herself. And me? I was just getting started. The text came the next morning. "I want to talk. One last time." I stared at it for a while. Not because I was considering it, no. I just couldn't decide what was more pathetic, the fact that she thought I'd fall for her act again, or that she still believed she could twist the knife deeper. I didn't respond. Instead, I let the silence drive her crazy. By that afternoon, I was getting voicemails, rambling, emotional, manipulative. First she was apologetic, claiming she didn't mean to hurt me. Then angry, saying I was being cruel for punishing her so harshly. Then came the desperation. "You're overreacting. It wasn't even serious." Brandon meant nothing. Brandon. That name was now burned into my brain like a scar. I didn't even know the guy until a few weeks ago. Just a blurry figure in a few photos, a name on a receipt. But when I dug deeper, I found it all. Brandon the bartender. 26, broke, living with roommates, and proud owner of a collection of cheap colognes and Instagram thirst traps. He wasn't just some random fling. He was her escape fantasy. And now he was about to become her full-time reality. Later that day, I drove to the bar where he worked. I didn't plan on starting anything. I wasn't that stupid. But I wanted him to see me. To look into the eyes of the man whose life he helped destroy. He was behind the counter when I walked in, laughing with some college girls, shaking a cocktail like he was auditioning for a reality show. When our eyes met, his smile faltered. I didn't say a word, just stared. And that silence? It said everything. He walked off to the back room and didn't return. Coward. The next few days were cleansing. I started going to the gym again, waking up early, eating clean. The house was finally quiet, not silent like before, when silence meant tension, but peaceful. I wasn't walking on eggshells anymore. I wasn't pretending not to smell cologne that wasn't mine on her dress shirts. I wasn't playing dumb when she said her late-night showers were because of hot yoga. No more lies. Just me. Healing. But of course, peace never lasts long when someone like Madison's involved. A few days after the movers finished clearing out her garbage, she showed up at my front door. No warning. No call. Just rage. She was standing there with a forced smile, one bag in her hand and sunglasses she didn't even bother to remove. "I want to talk," she said, like this was some casual misunderstanding. I leaned against the doorframe. "There's nothing left to say." She pushed past me like she still owned the place, stepping into the living room. "You're being dramatic. I made a mistake. We can fix this." "Stop." I shut the door and turned to face her. "You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. Over and over again." She dropped the act then. The mask slipped. Her eyes turned cold. "You think you're better than me now? That throwing me out makes you the hero?" I didn't answer. Because I wasn't trying to be a hero. I was done being the idiot. She took a deep breath, looked around the room, and said, "You're going to regret this. No one will love you the way I did." I laughed. Actually laughed. "You're right. I hope no one ever loves me like you did." And with that, I opened the door and pointed out. "Get out." She stood there for a second, stunned. like she still thought she had power. Then she left. And this time, I didn't watch her go. Because this chapter, it was already closed. 3 days passed. Not a word from Madison. No texts. No voicemails. Not even a guilt trap post on social media, which was unusual for someone who lived off fake validation. But I wasn't fooled. This silence wasn't surrender, it was strategy. The calm before the storm. I knew her too well. When Madison went quiet, it meant she was plotting. So, I started preparing for the next strike. First, I contacted the lawyer again. Not just to finalize the divorce, that was already moving fast, but to dig deeper. Turns out, Madison hadn't just been unfaithful. She had siphoned money from one of our joint investment accounts and used it to book hotels, spa weekends, and even a trip to Vegas with her friends. Guess who one of the friends was? That's right, Brandon the bartender. The receipts were digital, the timestamps matched. She'd even put a few of them under my name. That was the final spark. The gasoline was already all over the place. Now I was just ready to light the whole thing. I drove straight to her new apartment. A small place in a sketchy part of town. Not even gated. She downgraded fast. From our 2-story home with a garden to this, I almost felt pity. Almost. When she opened the door, she was in a robe, face bare, and looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her arrogance had melted into something more bitter. Desperation mixed with entitlement. "Tyler," she muttered. "What do you want?" "To give you something," I said, handing her a folder. She opened it slowly, eyes scanning the pages. Legal documents. Proof of fraud. A letter from my attorney stating our intent to sue for reimbursement, asset seizure, and possible criminal charges if needed. Her eyes widened. "You are threatening me?" "No. I'm giving you a choice," I said, calm as ice. "You walk away with the clothes on your back, sign everything, disappear from my life, or we go to court, and you watch a judge tear you apart piece by piece." She dropped the folder. "You're insane. I'll tell them you're abusive, that you're controlling. I'll say anything." I stepped closer. "Go ahead. But you know what they'll see? A record of a loyal husband. Financially stable. Clean background. No criminal history. And then there's you. Affair, financial theft, abandonment of marital duty. I documented everything, Madison. Every call, every hotel, every lie. So if you want war, let's go." She stared at me in silence. For the first time, truly silent. Not because she had nothing to say, but because she knew she'd already lost. "You wanted freedom," I said, turning toward the door. "Now choke on it." And then I left. By the next morning, her signature was on every document. No fight, no tantrum, just silence. She knew the battle was over, and I didn't even have to raise my voice. But here's the twist. That wasn't even the real revenge. The real revenge was watching her fall apart while I rebuilt myself. I started posting again on social media, photos from the gym, out with friends, traveling. Not to flaunt, just to show her what she'd thrown away. She saw it too. I know because she kept watching my stories. Every single one. Her account? Still stalking. Still lurking. Meanwhile, Brandon? He was out of the picture a week later. Turns out he wasn't into long-term commitment. Who would have guessed? And Madison? Well, she posted a selfie with some deep caption about healing and growth. But everyone saw through it. Especially me. She had destroyed a marriage for a fling. Traded loyalty for ego. And now she was left with nothing but an empty apartment, a ruined reputation, and memories of a man who used to love her, until she turned him into a ghost with a mission. A week after she signed everything, I thought I was finally free. But Madison never knew how to lose gracefully. I was at the cafe down the street, sipping my coffee and going over emails when I noticed her standing outside the window. Hair a mess. Hoodie too big for her frame. Eyes red, like she'd either been crying or hadn't slept for days. Maybe both. She walked in, didn't order anything. Just came straight over and sat across from me like we were old friends catching up. "Tyler," she whispered, voice trembling. "Please, can we just talk? No yelling. No lawyers. Just you and me." I didn't say anything at first. Just looked at her. Really looked at her. This wasn't the Madison I used to know. This was a broken version. The version she created with her own choices. "Talk," I said. "You've got 5 minutes." She took a shaky breath. "I messed up. I know that. But you weren't there, Tyler. You were always working. I felt invisible. Here we go again. That same old script, dressed up like honesty. The classic blame the man for her affair routine. You felt invisible. So you opened your legs for another man? I asked flatly. She flinched. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that, Madison. You got bored, wanted attention, and instead of talking to me, you went behind my back and got it from a bartender. She blinked fast, like she could force tears out to win sympathy. I thought maybe he would make me feel something again. But it was a mistake. He was a loser. He's already gone. I raised my eyebrows. And I'm supposed to care because? Her lip quivered. Because I still love you. I leaned back in my chair. Let that sit for a second. No, Madison. You don't love me. You love the comfort. You love the security. You love the idea of me. But you didn't respect me. And without that, love means nothing. The silence between us was heavier than anything she said. People around us kept sipping their drinks, scrolling their phones, having small talk. And here we were, two broken people surrounded by normalcy, pretending like everything hadn't gone to hell. She finally said, I want to fix this. I shook my head slowly. There's nothing to fix. You didn't just cheat on me. You humiliated me, lied to me, stole from me, mocked me. And now that you've hit rock bottom, you want a lifeline. I'm not asking for everything back, she said quickly. Just a chance. I'll do anything. Anything. I asked. All right then. Get up. Walk out of this cafe. And never contact me again. That's the only thing I want from you. Her face twisted, not from heartbreak, but from realization. This was it. The final nail. The moment she could no longer control me. I gave you the best years of my life, she hissed under her breath. No, Madison, I said, rising from my seat. You wasted the best years of mine. And now I'm taking them back. I left her there, alone, shaking, not because I was cruel, but because I had finally understood something vital. She wasn't crying because she missed me. She was crying because she lost her grip on me. And I'd never let her touch me again. After the cafe incident, I blocked her. On everything. Phone, email, socials. Even mutual friends got the heads up. Madison had exhausted every possible route back into my life. Emotionally, legally, manipulatively. And now, she was out of options. But knowing her, I wasn't naive enough to think she'd stay gone. So I prepared for the next move. 2 weeks later, it came. A letter. Not digital, handwritten. Like we were in some old war novel, and she was sending me her final goodbye from the trenches of her self-inflicted misery. She slipped it under the door of my new apartment. I recognized the perfume before I even touched the envelope. That same nauseating vanilla musk blend she used to wear when she came home from girls' nights. The note started out calm, reflective, almost poetic. She talked about dreams she had of us, regrets, what she would have changed. Then it slowly unraveled into guilt-tripping. We built so much together. Don't let one mistake erase everything. One mistake? That one mistake had a name, a hotel history, and a Snapchat streak with her. And yet, the last line hit me the hardest. I don't recognize myself anymore. For once she was right. I didn't recognize her either. Not the woman who laughed in my face when I confronted her. Not the woman who mocked me for being too boring. And definitely not the woman who weaponized her pain to justify betrayal. But I wasn't about to reply. So instead, I mailed her back something different, a small package. Inside it was the framed photo from our wedding night. The one where she was looking up at me, smiling like she actually meant it. But I had scribbled one word across the glass in red marker. Liar. No note. No explanation. Just the truth. And that was the final thread. Because a few days later, she showed up at my building. Again. This time, in broad daylight. My building had security, but they recognized her. I guess I didn't warn them she'd try the I just need closure stunt. When I opened the door, she was already crying. No makeup. Hood over her head. Like a villain dressing herself up as the victim. Tyler, please just talk to me. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. I didn't say a word. She fell to her knees. Literally. Right there in the hallway. You don't understand, she sobbed. I lost everything. My job found out. My friends, they won't return my calls. My own parents won't speak to me. Everyone thinks I'm some monster. I leaned against the doorframe. Maybe that's because you were. She shook her head like a child being scolded. I didn't mean for it to go that far. I felt like I was drowning. And Brandon, he was a distraction. A mistake. A mistake I would undo 1,000 times if I could. But you can't, I said coldly. And even if you could, you wouldn't have, unless you got caught. That silence again. The kind that makes the air heavier. Please, she whispered, standing now. Please, I just need to know if you ever loved me. I looked her in the eye. I did. With everything I had. Until you killed it. Then I slowly closed the door. Not slammed. Just closed. And with that final click, I knew. She wasn't looking for closure. She was looking for permission to stop feeling guilty. But that was never mine to give. After that final door click, the world went quiet. Not just the physical silence in the hallway or the lack of her voice begging from behind the door. I mean the kind of quiet that only comes when the storm is finally gone. The kind that settles deep in your bones. Peace. I didn't hear from her again after that. Not directly. But word travels fast when you used to share a life with someone like Madison. Friends we once had as a couple started choosing sides, and to my surprise, most of them chose mine. Turns out, she hadn't just cheated on me. She burned bridges with a lot of people along the way. Manipulated. Lied. Gossiped. Played victim. It was all unraveling now, piece by piece. Meanwhile, I was rebuilding, from the ground up. I started going out again. Not on dates. Not yet, but just living. Exploring the city like I hadn't in years. I'd forgotten what it was like to have full control of my own time. No fake apologies. No second-guessing every conversation. No pretending I didn't notice the late-night texts on a locked screen. I poured energy into my business, into the gym, into friends who actually respected me. I even reconnected with my sister, whom I distanced myself from because Madison didn't get along with her. Funny how much you see clearly once you cut out the poison. And the more I lived, the less I thought about her. Until one day, I got a message from a mutual friend. You might want to check Madison's latest post. I didn't want to. Truly. I had no curiosity left, just disgust. But something made me look. There she was, sitting alone in some therapist's waiting room. Caption, healing isn't linear. Some wounds are self-inflicted. Hashtag accountability, hashtag starting over. At first glance, maybe someone would think it was growth. But I knew better. It was branding. Damage control. She wasn't healing. She was rebranding herself for sympathy. Playing the look how far I've come game while quietly hoping people forgot how far she dragged others down in the process. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel anger. I felt pity. Because Madison didn't know how to be alone. Not truly. She needed someone, anyone, to validate her worth. When I stopped giving her that, she tried Brandon. When Brandon bailed, she tried crawling back to me. Now that she had neither, she was using the internet. Attention was her oxygen, and she was gasping. But me? I was finally breathing freely. That night, I sat on my balcony with a drink in hand, phone face down. The city lights glowed in the distance. The air was crisp. For once, my mind wasn't racing. No pain. No loops of betrayal playing in my head. Just silence. Stillness. Then came a moment I didn't expect. Clarity. I realized I'd spent so long being angry, heartbroken, obsessed with what she'd done, that I forgot to celebrate what I'd done. I survived her. And not just survived, I came back stronger. Sharper. Wiser. Not bitter, but clear. Clear enough to know that Madison was never the prize. I was. She just didn't know how to handle a man who gave everything. Because she had nothing real to give back. And now? Now she's just a story I tell myself on nights like this to remind me how far I've come. A warning. A lesson. But not a wound. Not anymore. It's strange how endings creep up on you. They don't always arrive with fireworks, courtroom drama, or screaming matches in the rain. Sometimes, they come quietly, like a final page turning in a book you've read too many times. You don't slam it shut. You just close it, and you know you'll never open it again. That's what happened with Madison. There was no grand finale. No one last dramatic phone call. No mysterious message months later. Just silence. And it was the most beautiful silence I've ever known. It had been a few months since I last saw her. Enough time for the divorce to be finalized, for the dust to settle, for my life to evolve into something I no longer needed to compare to the past. I had stopped looking over my shoulder, stopped checking who was watching my stories, stopped wondering what she was doing. I didn't care. Not anymore. I was no longer the guy whose wife cheated. I was just me. Free. And that was something Madison could never take credit for. If anything, she gave it to me, not as a gift, but as a consequence of her own selfishness. And I accepted it, gratefully, not because I forgave her, but because I forgave myself, for staying too long, for trusting too hard, for not seeing her for what she was sooner. There was one more thing I had to do, though. A final piece of closure, not for her, but for me. Something symbolic. Something permanent. So I went to the lake. Not just any lake. Our lake. The one we used to visit early in our marriage, back when things were still painted in honeymoon colors and lies hadn't stained the edges. It was quiet, just like I remembered. Fog curling over the water. Birds drifting low. A place frozen in time. I brought a small box with me. Inside it were the last remnants of what we were. Old photos, a dried corsage from our wedding. One of the letters she wrote me back when her lies hadn't started yet. I didn't hesitate. I opened the box, dumped it into the lake, and watched the past drift away, piece by piece. The water swallowed it all without ceremony. Like it never mattered. Because now it didn't. On the way back to my car, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the kind that comes from running away. The kind that comes from finally facing the monster in your story and realizing it was just a person. A broken, selfish, shallow person who never deserved the power you gave them. Madison will always be a part of my story, but she'll never be the main character again. That title belongs to me now. And to anyone reading this who's still sitting in silence, still wondering if they're crazy, still hoping for an apology that won't come, let me tell you something. You don't need closure from the person who hurt you. You need clarity from yourself. They lied. They betrayed. They disrespected. But you survived. And that's worth more than any revenge, any confrontation, or any forced apology. So take your pain and build something stronger. Take your silence and turn it into strength. Take your story back and make damn sure you get the last word. I did.